Okay, good evening everyone, and I'm Tien Prakay Dao Phuksa Kasem Suk. So sorry for such a long name and complicated pronunciation. I am working as a project manager in a human rights organization based in Bangkok called Cross Cultural Foundation. So one of our work is to work with the family of the enforced disappearance cases, and especially those happening in the neighboring country. So it is really my great honor to be speaking in this panel since I'm really nervous, to be honest. And since I've never got the courage to talk about this important topic that is not just relating to my work, but also my personal experiences living abroad with my former partner in Cambodia who went missing in Cambodia back in 2020. So here, not to repeat what the other panelists may cover, like the transnational repression in Thailand as a host country, I would like to focus on the issues of TNR and the enforced disappearance of Thai citizens, what I might call a pattern of cross-border enforced disappearance of 9 Thai refugees after the coup d'etat in 2014. So just to give you some definition and context of what would be transnational repression and enforced disappearances. So enforced disappearances occurring in the context of transnational transfers has been defined by the UN Working Group on Enforced or Involuntary Disappearances as the conduct of states resorting to capturing their own nationals or their state's nationals with the participation, support, or acquiescence of the other states, often in the context of purported counter-terrorism operations, transnational repression tactics, such as assassination, unlawful deportations, detention, extraordinary rendition, physical and digital threats, and coercion are egregious ways in which authorities around the world seek to suppress dissent. Transnational repression is a growing threat, as our moderator already mentioned, to individuals and their rights, but also the rule of law. And what I mean about the cross-border trend of enforced disappearance of 9 Thai refugees after the coup d'etat in 2014. Who are the 9 disappeared? So this picture is taken from the momentum, but it also includes the Thai national domestic enforced disappearance of other cases like Emilie Palamy. But there is the 9 cases of Thai refugees are particular in terms of the pattern. So since the coup d'etat in 2014, each year or every year we would hear the bad news about someone or some group of people who went missing, abducted. It all started back in 2016 when the first case of DJ Sunho or Ithipon Sukpan went missing in Laos, and then Koti, his nickname, also gone in Laos in 2017, the next year. And then in 2018, 3 people also went missing from Laos, aka Comrade Kasalong, Puchana, and Surachai Sadan. All together used to live in a house based in Vientiane. And then on 2019, Sayam Thirawut, Chuchip Chivasut, and Graidet Lulert were last found in Vietnam. And finally, the 9th case, Wanchalerm Satsaksit. He was forced to disappear in broad daylight just in front of his apartment in Phnom Penh, Cambodia in June 2020. So these are some of the patterns of practices that we have observed since the coup d'etat, like, under the reign or under the regime of Prayut Chan-o-cha and his NCPO. So those authoritarian government would see the target as threats. They would have some blacklist of the people who who violate the charge of freedom of expression, just like Last Majesty Article 112 or Computer Crime Act. There is also an operation of mis and disinformation degrading these people. They would be labeled as national threats, people who had their nation, people who lost their homes so that they have to flee into other countries. All these people are charged with political motivated offenses I already mentioned. And that is a form of cooperation between the state perpetrators. Allegedly, for example, Thailand and Cambodia, Vietnam and Laos, I already talked about these cases who went missing in different countries. There is also a lack of willing to acknowledge the incident, to investigate the case, to ensure accountability, and thus to provide remedy to the families. And what are the form of tactics that were used by the perpetrator that we are still don't know who, but there is one form, the direct attacks. This is the most often form that happened to the Thai refugees in the neighboring country, like the surveillance, assault, assassination, unexplained disappearance, and rendition. There is also those violations that take place back in Thailand, like a long-distance threats we call family intimidation. Just 1 month before, prior to the disappearance of Vanchalerm, he reported that his family, his mother, was visited by some officials. And this kind of practice happened almost every month to his family in Ubon Ratchathani. And also digital surveillance, like on social media platform or possibly spyware and hack on the account of the refugees. And of course, co-opting other countries, like what we call the host countries. And what I'm going to show you is the evidence that the family, Miss Sitanan Satsaksit, his sister, and also a team of lawyers tried to gather by herself. There is this one public leak of a secret document, and it might not be clear if you, but it is a document that identifies the target of the secret operation. There is a code, like for example, D for delete, and targeted some of the most hardcore leaders, and delete is meaning to death, catch, arrest them. Also, there is a C for catch for less extreme leaders that they are going to be arrested, and then a less severe form of operation. And also, this is a document, a record from the officials, so the cybercrime suppression unit, stating clearly that the officials already know that Vanchalerm used to live in Cambodia. Like in the second paragraph stating that there is reliable evidence that Vanchalerm already flee to a foreign country, and with the attached information here. We have this picture, it is the attachment of the last document, a picture of a taxi whose place is 2S8194 on the day that it went to pick up Prakai Dao or I myself. And then this is the next picture of the taxi. The certain taxi went into the apartment where Vanchalerm used to stay. It also said Mekong Garden Condominium. And this is also the last whereabouts of Mr. Vanchalerm Satsaksit and the place where he was last seen. There are also some pictures that Vanchalerm, I and other friends trying to store it in as evidence along the way of our life abroad in Cambodia. This is a picture of a three men in a bar called Duplex. And all these documents are already submitted to relevant authorities, so I kind of feel like this is something that I need to show here today. And on that day, Vanchalerm and I, we went to hang at that bar, and then after some hours, we went back home, and then the bartender who was quite close to us called and then said that these three men came and showed a picture of myself and my baggage in the airport, asking where this woman went and where does she live with Vanchalerm. The fact is that they actually tried to follow us up, right after we left the bar, but one of them lost his phone, so they had to came back to take his phone back. Quite ridiculous, but yeah. And then there is also a chat between Vanchalerm and his friend. He was trying to tell his friend that there is 3 officials who came in Cambodia, possibly intelligence operation. And he is giving the picture of these 3. at the end of the chat, he said that I'm just telling you this just in case I die. And these are the pictures that we got from his Facebook or social media. So all these practices ended up in the day he went missing on June 4th, 2020. He was on the phone with his sister, and then he was cut off. And then his sister called me, and I then proceed to talk to the people in Cambodia, who gave me all those footage CCTV, including the pictures of this Highlander car. And yeah, this is the last time we were able to contact Vanchalerm. So when I show you all these practices, it might give you the idea of how transnational repression tactics are used, and it would end up in such a serious violation, the enforced disappearance. So I'm just gonna go quickly on what we have as a domestic mechanism, domestic measures. What could we do when this kind of act happened to us, like back then and now? Before we, like right now we are still having these mechanisms. The complaint mechanism, such as the Office of Attorney General, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Royal Thai Police, including Crime Suppression Division, the Department of Special Investigation, the Ministry of Justice, the Parliament Commission on Law, Justice and Human Rights, and etc. Those are the state agencies where we could go and file complaints to. And then the next, let's say, activity we could try to seek justice for our beloved one, like the criminal and civil lawsuit. But this process would require hard evidence so that you can set up such lawsuit against someone or perpetrator in Thailand. And the next one, which is really new, we have a new law, the Prevention and Suppression of Torture and Enforced Disappearance 2022. This law was recently enforced in this year in February 2023. And it might mark some small, it's a progress that it could raise some hope for us, the victims, again. So what does it have, like, as provisions in this law relating to enforced disappearance and transnational repression? We have the provision about the definition of the crime of enforced disappearance in Section 7. And it's also marked that this crime is a continuous offense, meaning there is no statute of limitation of enforced disappearance. And Section 8 about the universal jurisdiction of torture, ill treatment, and enforced disappearance. So simply speaking is that anyone commit these crimes, even outside of the Kingdom of Thailand, if they come in Thailand, they could be prosecuted and hold accountability under the Thai jurisdiction. Section 10 is about the investigation of enforced disappearance. So the relevant authorities must investigate if there is an allegation of enforced disappearance until their fate is known. And also the offender is known. Also about Section 13 about the non-refoulement principles. In the case where there are refugees in Thailand, for example, on which our panelists would also cover later, the authorities must ensure that they won't be extradited or expelled to face any risk of harm like torture, ill treatment, or enforced disappearance. So there are a lot to say, but I won't go any longer for now. But I just want to talk about the challenges to close my presentation here. Like, why does it happen? Will it happen again? And what are the factors that make it continue? I think that in our region, there is a political conflict and regional practices of repression. We have experienced long-term political conflict like at the regional level and has a history of repression against the dissidents. We have also observed the relationship between state leaders, which could be show the lack of political will to investigate the transnational enforced disappearance. There is also a lack of understanding on human rights mechanism and also the principles in general. I mean, I personally haven't known about the term transnational repression, and back then when the incident took place, I didn't know what to do. I know that it's a violation that should be prohibited worldwide. I know nothing. And among 9 cases of TNR-ED cases, we were only able to work with 4 families who are very brave. I'm not blaming the others, but yeah, due to this challenge, we have only 4 families who came out to seek justice and fight along the way. And yeah, this will result in the culture of impunity both in Thailand and at regional level. Also, the next challenge we find is the complexity of the transnational case itself and the newness at country level. So violations committed within the Thai jurisdiction is already really difficult and complicated to hold responsible the perpetrator. So transnational repression practice is even more very discreet and hard to find evidence. Most of the time, the case would just fall into the void, like the 5 cases I mentioned out of 9 cases, due to its lack of hard evidence, leaving the family in suffering, mistreated, and inaccessible to remedy. So, yeah. Thank you very much for your attention. And again, I'm still nervous and anxious. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the Foreign Correspondents Club of Thailand. This evening, we are here to discuss and contemplate the topic of the impact of transnational repression in the Mekong region, putting lived experience into policy to stop abuses. Transnational repression is a new name for an old problem. And in a place like Thailand, which has been traditionally a place of refuge, of first resort for human rights defenders and refugees fleeing persecution in the region, it is basically that terrible phenomena where the repressive regime that you are fleeing is able to reach its long, nasty claws into Thailand to cause you pain, misery, and even death. Before I open the floor to our esteemed panelists who bring very interesting and important texture and information and insights to this topic, I'm going to call on Katia to press the next on the slide. So, is that happening? Yes. So, firstly, just a little bit of a refresher. When we talk about transnational repression, we usually encounter 4 types of behavior. One is direct attacks, when the repressive regime sends agents or themselves send their personnel to come and attack you or even kill you or abduct you in the country in which you're temporarily or permanently seeking refuge. The other tactic is co-opting other countries, manipulating institutions in another country to detain, deport, or send you back to the repressive regime that you were fleeing from. One of the third common phenomena is mobility controls, restricting the ability of an individual to travel internationally, often through passport or document control. We are seeing that phenomena emerge even more in the past 3 years since the military coup in Burma, Myanmar, where the military junta has been cancelling passports without people's knowledge, and they inevitably find themselves in trouble. And fourth, threats from a distance, repressing individuals abroad without leaving the sovereign territory of the origin country, such as through spyware or coercion by proxy. And for the Rohingya and a number of other persecuted peoples, this is also taking the form of organized hate speech and hate campaigns against people in exile. So, having done that little bit of a situational, I realize I've been a rude moderator. I'm Debbie Stothard, coordinator of ALTSEAN-Burma, and it's my pleasure to moderate this evening's proceedings. Now, Mekong is a very big region. We often, and not all individual countries are represented here, but we are aware that there are friends in the audience who come from these countries and who have themselves been directly or indirectly subjected to transnational repression. We are not live streaming this event. We are recording it. We will edit it so that people who wish to ask questions from the floor or raise cases from the floor can do so without being identified. And once that is edited, only then will we make it available to the public. So we have quite a gender balanced panel today, finally. Sorry, just joking. We're going to have an opening from Phil Robertson. Now, if you Google Phil Robertson bio, you will inevitably find the profile of Phil Robertson, the Duck Hunter, a celebrity from reality TV. Fortunately, and maybe unfortunately, this is not the Phil Robertson we're talking about. This is the troublemaking Phil Robertson, who has been working on human rights in Southeast Asia for the past 30 years. So Phil, the floor is yours. I'm trying to make sure everybody keeps to 8 minutes, 10 minutes on the maximum so we have time for discussion. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Debbie. It's a pleasure to be here. I want to thank you and others for inviting me, giving me this chance to talk about transnational repression, which we see as a worsening trend in the region. And as Debbie mentioned, I'm Phil Robertson. I'm the Deputy Asia Director for Human Rights Watch, based here in Bangkok. And when I talk about TNR, I'm going to talk about what's happening in Thailand primarily. And we've mostly seen two forms, capturing, kidnapping, or arresting dissidents and forcing them back to face persecution in the country that they fled from, or physical attacks or enforced disappearance. And it's important to understand that this really kicked into gear in Thailand after the military coup of 2014 that installed General Pradichit Chan-o-cha as head of government and Deputy Prime Minister General Prawit Wongsuwan. And it continued during the coup period, but it continued after the 2019 election, which saw those two people return to power. And the big question now is, what is the new government of Prime Minister Srettha Thavisin going to do about some of these issues? Will there be accountability? Will there be investigations? These are the things we want to know. Now, as Debbie mentioned, Thailand has previously had a long history of serving as a refuge for exiles fleeing repressive neighboring governments, and that changed very quickly after the military coup in 2014. Traditionally, we saw that, opposition groups and individuals, whether they be from Laos, Cambodia, Myanmar, Vietnam, China, and elsewhere, they were able to flee to Thailand, often able to continue their activities, sometimes while they were working, and then wait third country resettlement. And Thailand was also serving, before 2014, as a pathway for some groups like Uyghurs and Rohingya seeking to flee repression and get to Malaysia or onto Turkey and other parts of the Middle East. But with the Prawit junta in charge, what quickly developed was what we at Human Rights Watch have been calling a swap mart, where the Thai government was prepared to capture and send dissidents back in exchange for political favors or financial payments. And we're a bit worried because we've seen this trend continue under Prime Minister Srettha's government, especially where Cambodians are concerned. There's a close relationship between Thaksin Shinawatra, the former prime minister who's allegedly at a hospital right nearby here, and former Cambodia Prime Minister Hun Sen. Seen last year, actually in August, when Thaksin and his sister Yingluck showed up in Phnom Penh to celebrate Hun Sen's 72nd birthday. And that relationship has now continued and expanded to Prime Minister Seta and Prime Minister Hun Manet, the son of Hun Sen. So what we saw, for instance, on December 29th, when everybody was on vacation, was the arrest of 11 Cambodian refugees at a migrant workplace where they were talking about Cambodian politics. And it's interesting to note that that raid was led by a very senior police special branch officer whose presence indicates that the orders came from senior levels of the government, i.e. that this was not just an ordinary raid. And this followed pro-government political parties in Cambodia complaining to Prime Minister Seta about the Move Forward Party allegedly training Cambodian opposition parties in Thailand. So what you see is that if neighboring governments, whether it be Laos, Vietnam, Cambodia, Myanmar, complain to the Thai government or ask the Thai government for favors, they're more likely to do something than not. Now, we've also seen during this period a number of Thais, mostly from red shirt left-wing movements, who fled into neighboring countries, though were caught and sent back, or who disappeared in actions that we credibly believe involve Thai officials from the government or other higher places that can't be named. Many of these Thais were rank and file, but not elite members of opposition movements. So they fled to Cambodia and Laos, where they were originally given some protection, bought with the largesse of exiled former Thai Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra, and then that later broke down. In other cases, we have repressive governments, Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam, who have sent teams into Thailand, conduct monitoring and surveillance of dissidents, in at least 3 cases abducted or disappeared dissidents. In some cases, the Thai authorities looked the other way and let it proceed. In other instances, they actively assisted. Very interestingly, last April, there was a case of the abduction of Thai Vang Duong. This is a Vietnam dissident in Pathum Thani, where he was abducted in a clear case of a Vietnam government snatch squad that had been sent to pick him up. There's video that I have seen of the abduction taking place. And interestingly, we were told by Thai government officials that they were very unhappy about this because Vietnam had not asked permission to do that. They said, normally they have to ask permission. If we say it's okay, then they can proceed. But in this case, they didn't ask permission, so now it's a big issue. Now, I can go through a whole bunch of cases, but I think I can also lead some of these to the question and answer. But we've had cases of, for instance, a Cambodian politician, Tony Mon, abducted at a big sea, driven around and then handed over to Cambodian soldiers. The next day, he appears in Phnom Penh in a press conference praising Hun Sen. He's now fled again and sought assistance in a third country. We had the arrest of a Cambodian shoe thrower, Sam Soka, who took a shoe and took a video of herself hitting a poster of Hun Sen with the shoe, which of course is rather insulting. She was arrested in Thailand. She was sent back. She served 2 years in prison, subsequently released, fled again to Thailand, and she was one of the 11 people who was arrested on December 29th. Fortunately, however, she has now resettled to a third country that shall remain unnamed, but we share our gratitude for them taking her, and this is the situation we face. I'm not going to speak so much about the details of the various Thais who have disappeared in places like Laos and Cambodia. I think others will probably cover those issues. I'm thinking, look at my friend Noi Noi over here. It's quite clear, however, that we've also had people who have been forcibly disappeared in Thailand. And I would mention the case, for instance, of OHCHR, who was a leader of the Lao trade union that was trying to organize migrant workers. He was also a leader of the Free Lao group. The last time I saw him actually was right over by the stage over here where we had met and talked at the FCCT. Several months later, he disappeared without a trace, and he's believed to have been taken by the Lao, perhaps with assistance by the Thais, and disappeared. And I'm sure we'll hear more about that case and other cases from Laos from Emilie. Of course, one of the big users of transnational repression has always been China. There's a very clear case, and this was such an obvious case that Deputy Prime Minister Prawit was directly involved in. We had the case of Jiang Yifei and Dong Guangping. They were ready to resettle to Canada. Canada had actually sent letters to the various different parts of the Thai government saying, we've accepted these people, they're scheduled to be departing in a matter of days to Canada, and thank you for all your assistance to them. They were supposed to leave, I believe, on a Tuesday. The Saturday before, they were bundled up by the Thais and sent back to Beijing. Very, very obvious case of refoulement. In some cases, it's not clear why China wanted them so much, nor is it clear why Thailand agreed to do so. But it was quite clear that this was a sort of in-your-face to Canada, which was prepared to receive them. UNHCR was quite unhappy. UNHCR raised this in a private letter, which later leaked to Reuters, and then were called in by Deputy Prime Minister Prawit. And the UNHCR expected that they were being taken into the woodshed, that they were going to get a spanking for daring raise the issue of these two cases with the Deputy Prime Minister. When they get there, Deputy Prime Minister says, oh geez, I didn't know they were refugees. Otherwise we would never sent them back. When in fact he knew exactly what they were. And then he said, oh, here's my advisor. If you ever have any problems, talk to my advisor. You know, so this is a sort of game where there was a decision made, there was an agreement made. You know, it happened in this surreptitious way, and these two men were sent off. Their families ultimately did resettle to Canada, and both of them are still stuck in China. I'm also going to mention the case of the 109 Uyghurs, where we had 109 Uyghurs who were bundled onto a plane, each accompanied by a member of the Chinese police, each of them blindfolded, and there's photo and video of these people being transported back to China. Again, an agreement at the top levels of the Thai government with China. And ultimately, what happened? Well, you know, the Thais again said, well, geez, you know, we were told they were criminal suspects and we had to send them back. And then they later sent some NSC aide who got a dog and pony show in Beijing to say that he was looking for them to see what happened to them. We still don't know what's happened to those 109 Uyghurs. What is quite clear is that they have not resurfaced. You know, they're probably in a detention camp somewhere or something worse. Even cases of Malaysia, we've had cases of Malaysia. We had a very prominent LGBT icon and fashion influencer, a woman named Nur Sajat, transgender. She was charged with cross-dressing. She fled to Thailand, and Malaysia actively pursued her. The religious officials said they were going to put 300 officials on her case. And she was arrested in Thailand, in Bangkok, based on a tip from Malaysia. There was a process to send her back. We and others intervened and stopped it. Evidently, the Malaysians didn't explain to the Thai immigration officials how prominent she was, because as soon as Ministry of Foreign Affairs got involved, the immigration officials backed off, and she ultimately was resettled to Australia, where she's successfully pursuing her businesses. But there was also a case where an asylum seeker, a woman involved in the Organization for Thai Federation, which is an organization that has been accused of LM offenses, was sent back from Malaysia and imprisoned in Thailand. This is Prampan Pipit Nampon. And she is still in prison. So all these governments are playing these games. They're working together to pursue dissidents and activists, and it has to stop. So we have a number of recommendations. I mean, obviously for Thailand, we want them to thoroughly and transparently investigate these alleged instances of transnational repression and issue the findings publicly, take actions against countries responsible. We expect that There should be investigations of alleged transnational expression against exiled Thai nationals in Southeast Asia. We want them to catalog all the bilateral agreements that Thailand has with other governments that regulate the deportation of foreign nationals and make those public. And we want them to certainly rescind a bilateral agreement with Cambodia on the cooperation in apprehending fugitives, which has been repeatedly abused by the Cambodian government and previous Thai governments. Finally, I think there should be some sort of independent oversight committee with civil society organization representatives to investigate, with subpoena powers, the issue of transnational repression in Thailand by foreign governments and issue recommendations that end the practice and better protect exiled dissidents in Thailand.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you for the chilling alert that transnational repression is on the rise in Thailand with no end in sight, despite the change of regime with the election of the new government, and for calling Thailand a swap mart, where people are essentially human rights defenders and pro-democracy activists are being traded for political and economic favors. And also this rather interesting phenomena of polite rendition and rude rendition. But also the learning that timing counts when it comes to saving someone from transnational repression. Next up is Katia Chirizzi from the UN Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. She's been working at the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights since 2007, having worked in and on Nepal and also on human rights situations in India, Bangladesh, Bhutan, the Maldives, and Sri Lanka. She's been based in at the office in Bangkok since 2015. And before that, she worked at the OSCE in Kosovo and Serbia. I'm going to hand over the floor to you in terms of what is the response? What would be your lens from the UN, knowing and aware that transnational repression is actually a new concept for an old problem? So Katia, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Debbie, and a real pleasure to be with all of you tonight. I think, in terms of the segue of our own discussion tonight, I just wanted to zoom out for a second and look at it from the perspective of unpacking it a bit from the point of view of what international human rights standards will tell us about it, but also from the point of view of what has been the action and the response of the UN on a number of these issues. As you were saying before, Debbie, the term transnational repression does not really per se defines a new form of a human rights violation, but rather it highlights the transnational and the cross-border nature of an array of human rights violations that are perpetrated by one state in the national jurisdiction of another one. Now, while this is not a new phenomenon, in the past decade, transnational repression has increasingly become a common and institutionalized practice used by dozens of governments, not just in this region, but around the world, to reach across borders and silence dissent among diasporas, refugees, and exiles in particular. Governments can also use it to get information and coerce individuals to return in their country of origin, so as a way to exert pressure. Now, I will not go back to, you were already unpacking, Debbie, for us what the main element of transborder intimidation, violence, and harassment, and the various forms that can take about. I would maybe add to it or unpack a bit more the element related to the online elements of it, which is, of course, increasing in a digitalized world, and exercise to threats from a distance, of course, including online intimidation and surveillance, but also stalking, hacking, using spyware, and launching also misinformation campaigns. Another also important element is the repression that can be exercised indirectly through family members or closely friends and associated, which of course has the end result of having the same pressure on the targeted individuals or community. Now, who are the targets of transnational repression? And global trends indicate that these will primarily be pro-democracy and social activists, human rights defenders, including environmental human rights defenders, political opponents, dissidents, and journalists, which are the ones among those more targeted. Other targeted groups include religious and ethnic minorities, where sometimes entire communities are being subjected to multiple forms of transnational repression. And beyond that, transnational repression has a chilling impact that extends beyond the targeted individuals and to intimidate sometimes entire diaspora communities, family members who remain in the country of origin, independent media, but also civil society at large. Now, turning to the Asia-Pacific region, and more specifically to Southeast Asia. Over the past years, the special procedures of the UN Human Rights Council, and in particular the UN Working Group on Enforced and Involuntary Disappearances, and the Special Rapporteurs on Human Rights Defenders, the Special Rapporteur on Freedom of Expression, have raised concerns several times about cases of alleged cross-border human rights violations, including extrajudicial killings, abductions, enforced disappearances, forced renditions, arbitrary detention, and unlawful deportations involving several countries in the region. For instance, in a joint allegation lectures to the governments of Thailand, Laos PDR, Vietnam, and Cambodia in December 2020, UN special rapporteurs noted with concerns that the patterns of cases documented, quote, appear to point towards countries in the region coordinating, assisting, or acquiescing to extraterritorially abduct political activists and human rights defenders, leading to enforced disappearances, end in quote. And in September 2023, in a press statement, the special rapporteurs noted against, quoting, a worrying trend that states allegedly coordinate with one another to facilitate renditions, end of quote. In addition, in October 2023, special rapporteurs called on governments in the region, quote, not to deport people, including human rights defenders, to countries where there are substantial grounds to believe that they would face an imminent risk of enforced disappearance, torture, summary execution, and other grave human rights violations. And the expert also noted that such deportations contradict the principle of non-refoulement. Now, allow me for a second to get a bit more into what is the principle of non-refoulement, because this is really one of the key issues at stake here. And the principle of non-refoulement forms an essential protection under international human rights, refugee, humanitarian, and customary law. And it prohibits states from transferring or removing individuals, regardless of their status, from their jurisdiction or effective control, where there are substantial grounds for believing that the person would be at risk of an irreparable harm upon their return to the country of origin, including persecution, torture, ill treatment, or other serious forms of human rights violations. And so, under international human rights law, the prohibition of refoulement is explicitly included, for instance, in the Convention Against Torture and the Convention for the Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearance. Now, as an inherent element of the prohibition of torture and forms of ill treatment, the principle of non-refoulement is characterized by its absolute nature without any exception. And in this respect, the scope of this principle under international human rights law treaties is broader than what is contained in international refugee law. So the prohibition, to be clear, applies to all persons, irrespective of their citizenship, nationality, statelessness, or migration status. And it applies wherever a state exercises jurisdiction or an effective control on their territory. But now, if we look at how is the principle of non-refoulement is guaranteed in Southeast Asia, we can see that to date there are 6 Southeast Asian countries which are party to the Convention Against Torture, and these are Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos PDR, the Philippines, Thailand, and Vietnam. However, only one country in the region, Cambodia, has ratified the Convention on Enforced Disappearance. And Laos PDR, Indonesia, and Thailand have signed but not yet ratified the Convention. And while this is not yet legally binding at this stage, when a country signs a treaty, they have signaled their willingness and established an expectation that they will act in compliance with the spirit of its provision, and they would refrain from any action that may defeat the object and the purpose of the treaty, even before its entry into force. So the lack of treaties ratification, relevant criminal domestic legislation, and an overall absence of political will to promptly investigate and address acts of enforced disappearance, forced deportation and renditions, and other human rights violations of cross-border nature have resulted in long-standing and widespread impunity for alleged perpetrators. And this has also grossly undermined the ability of families and the victims, to start with, to obtain truth, justice, and seek reparation. So I would really like to conclude by stressing that transnational repression is a serious threat to human rights, democracy, and the rule of law, not only in this region but around the world. And accountability, therefore, is key to ending impunity and to prevent and address acts of transnational repression. So thank you very much for this opportunity today, and looking forward to the discussion to follow. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Katia. Thank you for reminding us that there are existing human rights protections under international humanitarian law, for sharing with us the attempts of UN Special Procedures and other offices of the Office of High Commission to try and emphasize and try to address this growing problem of transnational repression, and on insisting that accountability is necessary to stop this impunity, this climate of impunity that is growing in this region and globally. You know, in ASEAN, most of our governments are very allergic to accountability. And some of our member states seem to think that ratifying human rights treaties seems to be a commitment to commit more violations of those treaties. We've seen this in Cambodia, despite the fact that Hun Sen is no longer prime gangster of the country, it's still happening. So I think it's very much clear that we cannot depend on states alone to act. We do need solidarity from people's movements, human rights defenders, and international actors such as the UN to address this. And one of the people who's at the forefront of this struggle is Pornpen Khongkachonkiet, who we all know fondly as Noi. She's a lawyer, a human rights defender who was chair of Amnesty International Thailand and is currently director of the Cross-Cultural Foundation. She served on the Subcommittee on Justice Reform under the Parliamentarian Committee on Law, Justice and Human Rights, and was also on the Extraordinary Committee to draft the Prevention and Suppression of Torture and Enforced Disappearances Act of Thai Parliament. That law has passed and is very much at the heart of efforts in Thailand to address transnational repression. For her vast and diverse work on human rights issues in Thailand and beyond, Pornpen was targeted with defamation charges because along with human rights defenders Ms. Anchana Hemina and Mr. Somchai Homlao in 2016. So that's her badge of honor. This case is still ongoing, so please also pay attention to that. The floor is yours, Noi.
Thank you very much, but not on my CV. I also was arrested in Myanmar once. That's on the record. But today I'm going to talk about transnational repressions and enforced disappearance in Thailand and our attempt to protect not only for Thai, but also for everyone here. It could be you, it could be anyone close to you, because this is very severe human rights violations. I just wanted to say that we start from documenting cases in Thailand at first. We protect and work with the political activists, human rights defender, and marginalized population. And enforced disappearance is one of the most serious crimes that had happened in Thailand and also beyond. So we then linked it together and try. And today I was asked to tell the audience about how difficult to address two issues together, and it's actually happening. It had happened, not resolved. It's happening, and it will happen if we all not act against this TNR. So I wanted to maybe putting some figure in Thailand. Since the abduction and disappear of this labor union called Thanong Poat 30 years ago, we started to document cases of enforced disappearance. It could not register anywhere, so we just keep it in the Excel sheet until we have pushed enough pressure to now we have the enforced disappearance is a crime and it's illegal by law since last year. So 110 cases was cases in relation to counter-communist, counter-insurgency, war on drugs, and other related crimes. We do not represent all the families, but some of them, yes, we have also supporting team and also legal representation on several cases. And 30 cases alone is in the southern of Thailand since 2004. And also one very much TNR case, Transnational Repression case, related to Malayu Muslim insurgent who his body found in the river near the near Malaysian-Thailand border. And the case is also sparkling some of the conflict and tensions. And 9 cases related to TNR in Mekong region since 2014. That was the group of Red Church and also supporting to the reform of monarchy and also reform of Thailand. And none of the cases have been verified. I just wanted to reflect some of the cases in Thailand. These 2 cases is among 110 that actually we found some remain, some bodies apart, and also the one of them is a current activist. It's called Billy. The case is in the court. It's a long story about this case, but anyway, even the body found, very difficult to verify the identity and very difficult to put the perpetrator to justice, and the case is still pending. Another case is related to the landless movement. So as Katia said, all ranges of activism is actually targeted for enforced disappearance, and impunity is still at large. Next, please. So these are 9, including Billy and then, so it's about 12 cases, 11 cases of the ongoing cases, which we would also expect that the new law could also re-investigate the case because it's still fresh and not fresh like that, but it's still maybe we can creating some of the documentation and investigation over the cases, but still very difficult. We're expecting a different government, but we get the similar same government, so the re-investigation could be very difficult. So what we have been doing is supporting the family in Thailand. So think about those asylum seeker, refugee from neighboring countries. Who's supporting them? it's very difficult to create a space for them to call for 1 year anniversary, 2 year commemoration. Think about those who are being disappeared. But when you are refugee, when you are activists from neighboring countries, you are nobody here. But when the threat and intimidation has come to your friends, to your similar activists, you will feel fear and afraid. So the safety net is almost none. So the support of this kind of activists is very important to make them strong and continue their struggles. I can continue talking about the work that I've been doing with the Thai counterpart, but maybe shifting to the more related cases on TNR. This guy is Cambodian political activist. What happened in one of the morning, he was just arrested with no information who arrested him. And because when he was arrested in Bangkok, the Anti-Torture Act is already enforced. So there is an important element of this act that all the arrests need to be notified to prosecutor office and the district office. So at the moment, after the law implement, the provincial office of the prosecutions opening up a center that police, anyone who have arrested power, need to inform whenever they arrest anyone in Thailand, including foreigner, including Thai drug suspects or whoever. So immediately when we got the news from our friend from Cambodian side, I immediately called the prosecutor office. Is there any foreigner arrested that you've been reported all over Thailand to this center? And in the morning I got an answer and said, no foreigner was arrested last night due to the record that everyone supported to be reported under the new law. So after a few hours, I was thinking about immigration police who came and trained in our session called Safe in Custody because we want to promote this law. And from that phone call, he said, I call you back. And then he called in and said, yes, he is with us. So first thing I found, immigration police is not notify every arrest. How dangerous is this? It could be you. So this mechanism seemed to be effective. Then we continue asking for interventions. I was not in Bangkok, in Hat Yai. I said, could you wait for my lawyer, for our lawyer, to go and ask him whether he wanted to be returned back to Cambodia on the vehicle at 5 o'clock under the MOU between Thailand and Cambodia due to the illegal migrants transferring by land. He said, okay, please quickly send the lawyer, otherwise we send him on the next vehicle at 5 o'clock that day. Luckily that my lawyer also not that far, so we went there, and the migration police actually know all the procedures. So there was a video record of the procedure asking simple question: do you want to return to Cambodia, or do you want to take a asylum seeker here in Thailand? And the guy know exactly his right. He said, I wanted to be in Thailand and seeking asylum here. So he was saved. So that is such an intervention that work as of now. But we need more steps to ask the Thai authority to comply with the law, and we could save more people. The next case. This is our Myanmar beauty queen. Okay. The next lesson learned is the media. sometimes the media and the high-profile cases are a lesson learned from Thai authority, from Thai people, and also for our foreign friends who seeking safety in Thailand. So some case, it's good to go public. It's good to go telling the world that you are in danger, and things can be also, hopefully every case get saved, no? Next, please. There are details of these cases, no? This is a very old case in 2001 when I was very young. Okay, this is my first case as a paralegal. So I assisted the lawyer because he is not speaking English. This guy coming from Cambodia. So during that time, Thailand still comply with some more rule of law. So to send someone back to their origin country or to other country, we need to passing through extradition cases. The decision will be made by the court, not by immigration police. So our rule of law actually set back very far. So this case take 4 years in court. He has an arrest warrant from Hun Sen. He is the guy from Patabong. No? He was he arrested because his passport was expired or something, and he was arrested because of immigration law. And he spent 4 years during the extradition case. However, finally, the court actually ordered him to be sent back because he could not prove something related to his political purpose to be here in Thailand. Anyhow, in one of the Christmas, he was actually transferred to Finland, and he's safe there, and he's still healthy and with his family. So extradition case is a recommended, but it's taking a long time in order to defend, no? But we still recommend that Thailand is actually comply with the law. This another case which I wanted to give an example. He is a fixer of a journalist in Cambodia. No? It's called Russian Today, and his documentation is called Mother So Me, and it was sparking a lot of attention from Hun Sen and his government. So he knew that something will happen. So he, with his family, came to Thailand and looking for. Actually, he was invited by a friend to the one of the European country. Along the way, when he trying to apply for the visa, he was arrested nearby the embassy, left his wife and young boy behind in Thailand. And after that, we got information from our Cambodian friends. So I and my lawyer friend went quickly to immigration police. I was registered to visit him. We got the vetting paper. His name, his number was there. And I was told that maybe you have to wait because yesterday UNHCR came to the immigration office and they will come next day, which means the day that I went for the interview, because he was not yet applied for UNHCR. And when we were waiting in the morning, I don't know why, but we was informed that we cannot visit him, even though we have the waiting list. But much later, we found that during that time, there was a helicopter at the back of, I don't know where exactly. I did not hear the helicopter sound, but he was taken back to Cambodia. During the time that the police told us to wait, and during the time that UNHCR told immigration police that they will come to interview for international protection. So, can you follow me? So the wife and the son is left behind because the husband has been taken to Cambodia and he was charged, and quickly he was sentenced for 2 years. So that is during COVID time. So the wife and the son is with us. So we have to find all the things possible for emergency assistance. So I learned Khmer a little bit. I trying to be friend with her. And one of the time during that 2 years, I have to take her to mental health hospital because the suffer was so much. Everything was so difficult. And the boy was so cute, but it was difficult for this single mom when she passing through different time. She also very active, but later on she could not longer call for justice for her husband. Probably one last note about her, I still remember. I like swimming, and I took her to swim, and I take her boy with me. One of sentence struck me. She said, "I never breathed like this for a long time." Swimming, you have to control your breath. So in that 2 years time, she could not breathe as we can. But now they are safe and fine and willing to help with another case that's related to the exact issue that we are talking about. It's Wanchalerm case. It's an activist from Thailand who seek safety in Cambodia. These two cases happening like 3 months after. So Moni was arrested here, and about 3 months, Wanchalerm was reported that he was abducted in Cambodia. We went to Cambodia during COVID to investigate Wanchalerm case. And it is during COVID, so there is no tourist. So the Thai tourists actually surprising for the Cambodian people. And we said, we come and investigate about Wanchalerm. Everyone in the market, if I can talk to them, they said, we already returned Wanchalerm to Thailand. Why you are here? I said, yes. Everyone in Phnom Penh at least have that news that Wanchalerm was returned to Thailand. Why are you walking here looking for Wanchalerm? And linked to Muni case, he was released after 2 years. He came to Thailand, sneak in, don't tell immigration police. And he had brief visit to our office, say thank you on his trip to overseas, to the safe country. And he said, when he was in the prison, all the guard, security guard and police told him, you will be free soon because we already returned Wanchalerm to Thailand. This is a direct conversation from people who have probably convinced me that TNR is real and is a Mekong corporation.
Thank you, Pornpen. Thank you for that. So Noi has been working to stop and to respond to transnational repression without realizing that term for the past 23 years. And those very meaningful sharing really firstly shows us when Phil was talking about Thailand being a swap mart in transnational repression, here we see quite clear evidence that Wanchalerm was traded for money, even being spirited away by helicopter. But also, Pornpen reminds us that transnational repression has very serious personal repercussions, not just on the victim, the direct victim, but also family members, but also on the lawyers and the allies who continue to fight against this, who deal with case after case after case. And that while we seek legal redress, legal protection and accountability for transnational repression, we also need to understand that the victims of transnational repression their families, their colleagues, their networks also need very basic psychosocial support to be able to keep going. Speaking on that, Emilie Palamy Pradichit is the founder and executive director of Manushya Foundation, which is an intersectional feminist human rights organization. And there's a lot of things I want to say very nice things about Emilie, but I'm mindful that she's also in a position to share with us some of these stories of transnational repression, very human stories. Emilie herself is a Laotian refugee who grew up in France, and about 10 years ago she moved to Thailand at the time that transnational started to get worse. We don't blame you. We don't blame you. We know you're not the cause of it. But Emilie's mission has been to work with young people, rural people, forest-dependent communities, LGBTQI+ communities, and marginalized communities. And these are communities that fall within that area of transnational repression targets. So, Emilie, over to you.
Thank you very much, Debbie, for your nice introduction. It's great to be with everyone on the panel, because everybody is working very hard on TNR, and it's a very important discussion for me because I feel that nobody really cares about Laos. And so it's really important for me to be among the very few people to talk about Laos, and I didn't do it for several years because most of our work was secret and confidential for the protection of my family inside Laos and the protection of defenders that we were defending. And so that's why you won't see much on our website, whether we work on transnational repression or not. People don't know. They think we work on digital rights, corporate accountability and climate justice, access to justice before the UN, yes. But there's also a big part of our work that is related to transnational repression faced by Lao activists in Thailand, and now more recently, transnational repression faced by Chinese defenders in Laos. And this is a growing movement. I mean, when I opened Manushya 7 years ago, I had no clue that I would be working on transnational repression. And it's just because I didn't know that there were so many Lao people that were trying to flee Thailand, that were actually stuck in Thailand because they fled Laos and they've been stuck here for many, many years. And I just felt very overwhelmed by all the requests coming because finally they had someone speaking Lao to them. Finally, they had a Lao person working in the human rights field based in Bangkok that they could trust and that they could share information with. And it became all of a sudden very overwhelming to have to relocate people, especially when they're not being recognized in Thailand. Many of them became illegal migrant workers, or many of them just don't have any papers. And so I would like to share with you some cases, because by telling you the story of some cases, you will better understand who are those Lao people that I'm talking about, because they didn't decide to become Lao human rights defenders. They never thought that they would become Lao human rights defenders, actually. They're very normal people living a very normal life in Laos, but who are sick and tired of a very authoritarian government. And Laos is among the most authoritarian governments in Southeast Asia. But often, the international community is celebrating Laos for the little effort that it can make, just on human rights or on the SDGs. And I think it's very problematic for us from Laos and working on Laos when we see the international community, the donors community, and often the diplomatic community inside Laos praising a Lao government that is so authoritarian, that is killing people, that is abducting people, that is going after anyone who is speaking the truth to power, just for denouncing corruption, or just for because they want a better life, and they are sick and tired of the high rate of inflation. So I would like to start with the first case, so Boon Swan. So Boon Swan is a Lao migrant worker, democracy activist, who was part of the Free Laos movement, which is a movement of Lao migrant workers who decided to start fighting for democracy from Thailand. They are many from a poor background, from Laos, so that's why they migrated to Thailand. In Laos, they were not politically active. They became politically active once they came to Thailand, seeing that in Thailand people have rights, whereas in Laos people have no rights. And so Boon Swan have been in Thailand for more than 15 years, and he had a UNHCR card, and he was about to be relocated. And just a week before being relocated to Australia, he was found killed in Ruban Ratchathani, which is in the ALTSEAN province bordering Laos, and he was found killed, shot. So his body and a motorcycle was found there in a forest in Ruban Ratchathani on 17 May. So since 17 May, and together with other events that happened just before his killing, there is an increased worry around Lao activists who are still in Thailand. There have been Lao activists that we were able to relocate fast, and for the safety and the security, we cannot share the cases. But since Boon Swan was killed last year, there is an increased number of people who want to definitely leave Thailand. Before the case of Boon Swan, there were incidents that were telling us that there would be an increase of transnational repression in Thailand. And so what happened is there was an increase of repression against democracy activists by the Lao government. And so in April 2020, there was Savang, who is also part of the Free Laos movement. So he's a friend of Boon Swan. They were a group of friends in Bangkok. And so Savang has two nationalities. He's Thai, he's also Lao. So he was traveling on his Thai passport when he went back to Laos in April. He went back to Laos in April on his Thai passport, and he was arrested there. And so nobody knew where Savang was. We just knew that he disappeared all of a sudden. He was arrested in April of last year by the Lao authorities, and he reappeared. He was released on 26th of July, around 26th of July. The Lao government released him. But 2 days after, they arrested the Chinese defenders that I will explain later. So Savang disappeared on 20 April. And then 9 days later, Jack is being shot on 29 April. And Jack is not part of the Free Lao movement at all. He's totally not a migrant worker. He's a youth pro-democracy activist. He's 25 years old, living in Laos. And the only thing that he's doing is him and his generation had become more and more vocal against the Lao government. They started to become more vocal in 2022. First of all, for a different reason, because they were looking at what was happening in the region. They were following the Military Alliance. So they saw Thai youth pro-democracy movement growing. They also saw what was happening in Hong Kong. They started to communicate with other youth through closed Facebook groups since 2020, but they decided to become a public page in 2022, on 22nd March 2022, which is exactly the same date of the 22nd March is also the same date of the establishment of the one state political party in Laos. And so for them it was to make fun of the Lao government. On 29 April, so Jack, who is an administrator of the Facebook page called Powered by the Keyboard, because they use the keyboard to gain the power. So that Facebook page on 29 April changed the Facebook profile picture. And on that date, they put a profile picture where they were using the communist sign of China. And they put a tagline saying, "We will not be the slave of China, we will resist." And so on his page, Jack was using a lot of memes and denouncing Chinese harmful investments in Laos and the monopoly of China over Lao people, as well as talking about LGBT rights, environmental issues, and other social issues in Laos. But the fact that on 29 April he changed that profile picture and targeted China, the very same night he was shot. So many of us thought that he was killed, because that's what his family told us, that he was killed, by fear of whoever tried to kill him would come back to kill him for real. And so at that time, for us, we didn't know whether it was the Lao government behind, whether it was Chinese people behind, the Chinese government behind. But we were all, like with other organizations, like calling on the Lao government, and asking the Lao government to investigate the case. Looking back, because we know the Lao government's patterns of either abducting people or arresting them, we believe that China is involved in the case of Jack. And so when we see how China has power and they can do whatever they want in Laos, we are very worried, because they also can do whatever they want in Thailand. And so it was very worrying for us when Jack was shot, because when we realized that he was alive, and he then got in touch with me on Signal for him to be evacuated from Laos, there was this fear, right, that if we go get him, we will face transnational repression. And so we were able to get him out of Laos in early May, thanks to the support of OHCHR and other international institutions, but it was a very small group of people working on this case, 2 embassies and OHCHR. And we were able to bring him at the border in Udon in a hospital. We were stuck with him in the hospital, and we were not allowed to leave because the case became so famous in Thailand that the second we arrived in the hospital, we had to lie to the hospital, saying that it's my brother. They were like, did he get shot? No, he fought. It's my brother. Please take him. Please take him. So it was a journey to get him to Thailand. But once we got him into Thailand, the hospital put us in a VIP room, and they took us aside, and they were like, okay, you cannot lie to us. We know who he is, and we know that the Lao government is around. You know, we are in Udon, so there are Lao authorities around. So you need to be very careful. The second you came into our hospital, you put all our hospital in danger. Most of our staff don't even know that he is here. So only a few team of people knew that he was Jack. Obviously, everything changed, like his name, nobody knew, but all the nurses didn't know who he was, but the management of the hospital knew. So we were, me and 2 people in my team, we were stuck in a room with him. We were not allowed to leave the hospital and the room for 2 weeks because he could not be moved to Bangkok and then to another country because of his physical condition. And so for 2 weeks, we have 24/7 security guards with us. And the day he was finally ready to be relocated to Bangkok to get his final surgeries and move, that day Boon Swan was killed. And so it was very worrying for us because then we were aware that, okay, there are Lao and Thai authorities working together in Isan, and we are trying to get out with Jack. And I remember everybody was scared and I remember Laura calling me saying, are you safe? Because when they heard that a Lao person was killed, the first person they thought was Jack was killed. But it was Boon Swan. And so then we went to Bangkok and same thing, stuck in the hospital, 24/7 security. And I'm telling you all of that all that is happening. Meanwhile, none of us have money to pay for his medical bills and to pay for security. So while we have to care for activists who are facing transnational repression, and we're also putting ourselves of transnational repression, we're also dealing with the fact that we don't have money to save their lives. And so we're also stuck, we have to stop our operations, and we are stuck asking, begging for money, every single organization for 1,000 here, 2,000 there, because the emergency system assistance for people facing TNR is not effective. And you have a lot of NGOs working in this field, receiving money, but the moment, between the time the money comes to us, it takes months, or it's not enough. For his case, it was $70,000 of just medical bills. And I'm not even sharing the cost for security assistance and stay in Thailand before he could be relocated. And so all of that, it's just to let you know that transnational repression is a growing phenomenon, and we are not prepared, and we are not well assisted to respond to that. And there are more young people like Jack coming to Thailand because there has been a rise of inflation in Laos in last summer. The inflation rate was up to 40%, and now it dropped to 27%. And one of the reasons why we're very worried is because the new Lao Prime Minister is not someone that we can trust because he builds all his narrative around lies, and he's very focused on going after activists. So can you put them? So what is very disturbing every time we work on transnational repression cases is that the Lao government and Thai government always come with the same narrative. And it's exactly the same narrative that the Lao government used for the case of Sombat Somphone, who is a prominent Lao human rights defender who disappeared on 15 December 2012. And we don't know where he is since then. And so the Lao government was saying that he disappeared, but the Lao government is not involved. It must be like a personal dispute, personal business. They said exactly the same thing for Boon Swan. And it was on all the news in Thailand that Boon Swan was killed, but it was a family dispute. It was, between him and his family. They argued. It was the Lao government is not involved. Nothing to do with him being a democracy activist. Same thing with Jack. So for the case of Jack, they were saying, we have nothing to do with it, he was actually trying to flirt with a girlfriend of a mafia guy in Laos, so that's why he was shot. But Jack is gay. And so we were like, the Lao government is not even smart enough when they're coming up with lies sometimes, because everybody knew that he's gay, and this is the answer that the Lao government was giving the diplomatic community in Laos, asking questions about Jack, that it was a personal dispute, it's about a girl, but everybody knew that he's gay. Can you put the next slide, please? And so one of the reasons why I was sharing that we are worried is because the new Lao Prime Minister that took service at the end of December 2022, Somchai Siphandone, the second he took power, he was on a mission to go after activists, and he made it very clear. He made it very clear that his predecessor did a very bad job at controlling online speech. Because I was explaining in September 2022, there was a high inflation rate in Laos, 40%. And so everybody in Laos took on social media, especially Facebook, because Lao people use Facebook, to criticize the Lao government and to criticize the fact that the Lao government was doing nothing for its population. And so the prime minister at that time resigned, and so he, Somchai Siphandone, took power. And so when he took power, he was very clear that what his predecessor did wrong, he will do right, which means controlling the online space and going after whoever would criticize the government online. So it was no surprise that Jack was shot, as well. Currently, the Lao government and Lao authorities are going to different universities in Laos, different law schools, telling young people to stop posting on social media, to not listen to international NGOs and what is being said about Laos internationally. And so there is a lot of propaganda now in universities in Laos telling young people to be careful if you're posting on social media, because the Lao government can control you. And the Lao government can know who is behind pages, because remember what happened to Jack. We all knew in the end that he was the administrator of Powered by the Keyboard. So they are very direct about the intention, and also because Laos is now the chairman of ASEAN this year, And so it's very worrying for us that Laos, as the chairman of ASEAN, it's not being held into account for all the cases of transnational repression or the cases of enforced disappearance. On the opposite, the international community is more about, so how can we help you being a good chairman this year? Instead of, you are the chairman this year. We need to hold you into account for your human rights violation in Laos. No. And so we feel that Laos is a country that nobody cares about, and we don't feel any solidarity coming from the international community for our cause and for our fight for democracy. Next slide, please. So these are 3 documented cases of transnational repression in Thailand that we can share because these are public cases. So the first case, it's on the very right side, is OHCHR that Phil talked about at the beginning. So OHCHR is actually the co-founder of the Free Lao movement, of the Free Lao group in Thailand. And on the very left, Kukram Kermanivong is the other co-founder of the Free Laos group. And so OHCHR met with the UN Special Rapporteur on Human Rights and Extreme Poverty in March 2019 at the OHCHR office. Because the UN Special Rapporteur was organizing a country visit to Laos in March. And so there was meetings organized with defenders prior to his visit in Bangkok. So he met with the UN Special Rapporteur in March, and so that's one of the reasons that we believed he disappeared. And the other reason, it's because there was the ASEAN People's Forum that took place in Bangkok in September 2019. And OHCHR was actually preparing a protest during that ASEAN People's Forum. And so he was organizing and mobilizing the other Free Laos activists to do a protest in September for the ASEAN People's Forum. And how does the Lao government know that he was preparing a protest? It's simply because they're working hand in hand with the Thai security. You need to understand that they are Sentiban. We call them Sentiban. So these are people that are civil security, like security people dressed in civil, that become friends with those Lao activists. And so they become friends online. They use their Line application. They don't use any secure app. And they become friends with them, telling them that it's in the interest to be friends with those Sentiban, because the Sentiban, the security officers, can kind of protect them And so the Lao activists are in the situation where they think they are being protected by those Sentiban, and they are being pressured to tell them everywhere they go because they are being monitored. So everywhere they go, the Sentiban would know and would tell them, why did you go to the FCCT? What were you doing there? And so the day O disappeared on 26th August 2019, he was going to meet with the Sentiban. And so he was sharing his apartment with other Lao, with other Free Lao members. And so they remember that he was going to meet with one of the Sentiban who messaged him and asked him to meet. And they would meet regularly with them, you know, so he didn't think that by going to meet with one of them, he would disappear on that day. He didn't realize that preparing the protest for the ASEAN People's Forum would cost his life. So until now, we don't know where he is. The person in the middle is Joseph Akaravong. So Joseph is a Lao environmental activist, and he became very famous, and he's still very famous. He became now a public figure, but he became a public figure in Laos in July 2018. On 23rd July 2018, the Lao Atape Dam collapsed. And so he started doing Facebook Live videos where he explained to the Lao population that he's been documenting the lack of community consultation around the Lao Dam. That he had interviewed communities, indigenous people in the southern part of Laos. He had videos of them complaining about the Lao Dam, and that he knew that there was a lot of corruption around the construction of the dam. And so when the dam collapsed, it became a very, very important topic in Laos, also because the Lao government was not doing anything to go rescue the people who were dying. And so he became a very prominent public figure because for the first time, someone was criticizing the Lao government publicly. For the very first time, someone was finally calling out the Lao government from inside Laos without being scared. And so when he started speaking, he started also waking up the Lao youth. He's one of the people who started waking up the Lao youth and changing their mentality and encouraging them to speak against the Lao government. Obviously, the Lao government tried to capture him, and so 1 month after he became a public figure, he had to escape. He came to Thailand in August 2018, and from that moment until March 2022, we had to hide him in Bangkok. He was often followed by the security. It was a journey to get him out because of COVID, you know. Every time we thought that we would be able to relocate him to a third country, and he was relocated to France in March 2022. It was a journey because of COVID, so everything got stuck, you know, like when we thought he could leave, then he could not leave. He was stuck here, and then he was able to leave in March 2022, but again, we had to protect him, so it requires a lot of seeking funding, seeking for his protection, explaining to him, stop posting on Facebook, because there's something you cannot control, is how people are using Facebook, right? So even if you're telling a defender, please don't post on Facebook when you are with us in Thailand because you're putting everybody at risk, they still need to exist, right? And when the relocation is taking so long because of UNHCR processing that are not working in favor of activists targeted by TNR, sometimes they're telling you, maybe I should get killed, or maybe I should get shot, or maybe something must happen to me. Maybe at that moment UNHCR is going to take my case seriously. Because there's no understanding of transnational repression by the UNHCR. So that's why we work closely with OHCHR. Then they have to explain to their colleagues, you know, what is TNR and why this person needs to be relocated very fast. The person on the very left is Kukram Kermanivong, and he's one of the co-founders of the Free Laos movement. He was arrested at the end of January 2022. And Phil also worked a lot on this case. He was arrested at the end of 2022, and he was brought to the IDC, so the Immigration Detention Center. And so there's always this moment where once they are in the IDC, you have this fear that they are going to be deported, right? Like Pinoy was explaining how it's easy for them to be deported and sent back to their home country. So there was this fear that he's going to be sent back to Laos. But there was a lot of people working on his case. And thankfully, he was relocated to Canada in March 2022. The next slide, please.
We're running out of time.
Yeah. So there are also other Lao activists that are also part of the Free Lao movement who did not realize that, so they were also in touch with the Sentiban. All those people were people who were monitored and controlled by the Sentiban. And all of them, actually, when they went back to Laos, they were either arrested or they disappeared. So the three people that you see on the right side, Lokdam, Sukhan, and Sompon, they protested in front of the Lao embassy in 2015. And because of that, when they went back to renew their passport in 2016 in Vientiane, they were arrested. And then they went through a very, very fast trial, and now since then they are serving 20 years in jail. They also had to go on public television to humiliate themselves and to apologize to the government. Pet Bouton, who is also a member of the Free Love groups, who was in Thailand. After Od disappeared in August 2019, he went back to Laos in November 2019, and he was trying to organize a protest. So again, Thai and Lao officials working together, they know everything, they share information. So the second he went back to Laos, he disappeared since November 2019, and since then we don't know where he is. And so maybe you can skip to another very new phenomenon that is happening now. It's not only Lao people facing transnational repression in Thailand, but it's Chinese activists facing transnational repression inside Laos. And that's something that we cannot understand, is why are Chinese activists seeking refuge in Laos, knowing that it's not a safe place for them. And so Chao Sin-Sin is a digital rights activist who was seeking refuge in Vientiane, and he was going to embassies events, by the way. So it was easy for actually the Chinese government and the Lao authorities to know where he was, because he would check in and post on Facebook where he is. He disappeared on 31st May. The Lao authorities and Chinese authorities came to arrest him. He was deported back to China, and in August he reappeared in China, and he was found in jail in Henan province in China. The next case, it's Lu Siwei. So it was also a very prominent case. Lu Siwei was arrested on 28 July in Laos because he was trying to come to Thailand to then meet with his family in the US. He's a prominent human rights lawyer in China. He was defending Hong Kong activists. That's the reason why he was a target of the Chinese government. He was not allowed to travel outside of China, so he was able to enter Laos. And he was arrested on 28th of July. And it was a masquerade, because the Lao government was lying every day to the UN and to the diplomatic community that, don't worry, we're not going to deport him. Don't worry, we're not going to deport him. And when we were looking for lawyers to represent him inside Laos, none of the lawyers that I know would represent him, right? Because nobody wants to be killed, nobody wants to die. The only lawyer who agreed to represent him is a lawyer who is working for companies, who is very active in promoting businesses in the Golden Triangle, and who just took that $20,000 just to send a letter, but she was working in favor of the Lao government. And so we knew that it was impossible for us to do anything anyway. And so he was deported back to Laos. The Lao government lied every day to the diplomatic community and to the UN, saying that they are not going to deport him. They deported him mid-September back to China. And now he's, because the case made so much noise, I think that's the reason why he's now out on bail in China pending trial. So that was the last case that I want to share with you. But yeah, so we are calling for the international community to really take transnational repression seriously. We are calling for the accountability of the Lao government. Now that Laos is the chairman of ASEAN, we are hoping that the international community, the diplomatic community, and the donors community is going to stand in solidarity with us, because we feel very lonely in our struggle for democracy in Laos, in our struggle for accountability. Although there's the UN system and we engage in every UN reviews for Laos, there's just this need for the international community, but also the UN system itself, to recognize transnational repression as a crime and to call for the accountability of those perpetrating transnational repression. We also want the Thai government to criminalize transnational repression in Thailand, because the Anti-Torture and Anti-Enforced Disappearance Act is not enough. Although Section 13 is saying that the Thai government should not deport anyone who is facing torture back home, transnational repression is still happening. So there's a real need to criminalize transnational repression. There's a real need for donors to stop pouring money on Laos and to give us so little to work on democracy, And there's a real need for everybody to please start caring. You need to start caring about Laos, because we cannot continue doing this work alone. We really need your solidarity. Thank you.
Thank you, Emilie. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for exposing what has often been overlooked, the challenge of transnational repression against Laotians and in Laos. I think now we've already had presentations covering transnational repression taking place in various countries of the Mekong, primarily in Thailand, in which we've seen that activists, whether they are from China, whether they are Uyghur or human rights lawyers or environmental activists, activists from Thailand, from Cambodia, from Laos, from Burma, and we also know of cases from Vietnam. People are just not safe. And what do we need? We need to understand that in some cases, alerting the media and reaching out to the public at the right time, in the right circumstances, may not just save one life, but probably even save a few hundred, or the life of an entire family. Being able to reach out to lawyers who are committed to helping people, committed to stopping impunity, like lawyers from the Cross Cultural Foundation, who know the law and who actually know how to approach stakeholders like immigration and the police in order to ensure they enforce the law, is absolutely important. To have the resources to provide support, not just to the individuals concerned, but also providing much needed psychosocial support to their families and their associates and the allies helping them is critical, so that people are not made to feel isolated. And also continuing to raise awareness, whether it's in your circle, in the public, or even amongst UN agencies, is extremely important. So here we already have not just an expose of these cases, but also some of the proposed solutions moving forward. And Laos, as the chair of ASEAN this year, it's a chilling reminder, not just for activists from Burma, and of ASEAN's failure to address the ongoing atrocities in Burma, but the fear that Laos may actually even further abet and be accomplices to those crimes in Burma, but also that Laos itself has been increasing its attacks on human rights defenders, knowing that simply complaining in public about the price of things automatically makes you a threat to national security.